Welcome to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse, where host Michael Leiner talks to the best in the business about community, impact, business, and donuts. Here's your host, Michael Leiner.
Welcome back for another episode of the Triple D Podcast, Disability, Donuts, and Discourse. I have a guest that I'm really excited about this afternoon, Miss Gloria Jones, who we have had many episodes, and I feel like we're always out trying to, bring people on the podcast who are other professionals that we work with as disability lawyers. But it occurred to me that what people really need to hear, and you're so perfect, is somebody who has worked with us as a client. Mm-hmm. Gloria, I know, you're a professional.
Yes.
To begin with. So your background is we'll get into that a little bit, but I just want to thank you so much for being on here and being willing to share your story, because I think that there's a lot of people who can hear you talk and also just have a different view of what this journey looks like. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your work background.
I have been in the insurance brokerage or insurance, all those fields, for about 40 years.
Are you from the Cleveland area originally?
I'm from Akron, but I got to Cleveland through New Jersey and Los Angeles for 15 years. So I've been from coast to coast, yes.
Which place did you like living the most?
Oh, of course I loved LA. I just couldn't stand that traffic anymore. I worked 7 miles from my office, and it took me a minimum of 45 minutes just to go over the hill. I had a car that I had to shift, and when I would get in second gear, I'd get excited. I mean, that's how bad it was.
What years were you out in LA?
I went out there in 1984.
Okay.
And I came out here right at 2000.
So you were out there for 16 years,
yeah.
Quite a while.
Yeah.
Did you ever go back?
All the time, yes.
Good.
And I still talk to my girlfriend. I have a couple friends that are there, so I get the updates about the hurricane, the earthquake. I mean,
I know that's what's going on right now. It's all over the place, and that weather's starting to kind of spill over to the rest of the country.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yes.
So was it a hard, and you're from here, but was it a hard adjustment coming back to Ohio from LA?
It would. Just a little behind story. I moved to LA with my family, and my dad really didn't like it. And so he moved back in like a year and a half, and I stayed out there. I met my husband, and then I was widowed out there. So I lost my husband also. So I had reached a point in my life where I was like, what's important? I can't even go places to see my friends. It takes forever to get there. My friend and I would watch the Lakers game on the phone on our TVs because you just didn't want to do all that. And one day I just decided, I wasn't really feeling that. And then my brother threatened me and said, I'm going to be having children. You'll be the godmother. Wouldn't you want to be around them?
It's funny. One of my favorite stories that I think bonds me to my dad's sister, my Aunt Valerie, is she literally had accepted it. I'm from the Detroit area, and that's where I was born and raised, all the way through college. And she had accepted a job and I think even found an apartment in Chicago. And then my parents announced that they were pregnant with me. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I think my dad must have done the same thing to her that your brother did to you and said, you kind of can't go. You're about to be an aunt, and changed the trajectory of her life. She ended up marrying my uncle 2 kids later, and she's still in Detroit. But do you have nieces and nephews?
They're here, and yes, they're in this area. So my father had moved back into Westlake, and my brother is over there also.
And so I started asking, tell us a little bit about the work that you did all the years. You said you worked in the insurance industry.
So I started out working in the insurance industry. When I was in New Jersey, I worked in Center City, Philadelphia for Cigna, and I worked for them for almost 10 years, doing a lot of different things. And then I transferred with Cigna to Los Angeles. That's how I got there, was because I already had a job. And I did some really cool things for the insurance company. I investigated accidental deaths to see if they really, if they weren't suicides. I would meet with coroners. I would meet with police departments. A lot of different kinds of things. I would go out.
Were you ever involved, like working with? I mean, you said coroners and stuff, but were you ever working with lawyers in that?
I'm gonna say no, because basically, I was working. Well, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. Yes, I've had to testify. I've had to be
Okay.
deposed. I was deposed. Yes.
So give me like a fact pattern. Like what would happen that when you were in that line of work, you would get called to investigate or look into something?
Well, I'll tell you about one case. I don't remember. I remember the high level details, but there was a case out of Phoenix,
Yeah.
and this gentleman was killed on the off ramp from the freeway as a pedestrian. And there was a question as to whether it was intentional or if it was an accident. And met with the mother, and I met with the police. And, I mean, in these cases, sometimes the police would take me out and show me where something happened, and I'd be like, that's definitely an accident. In this case, I did not believe, based on my information, that it was. And I actually met with the Maricopa County, the coroner,
Okay.
and he changed his ruling because of the evidence that I gave him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And then I felt bad because I knew, you know what I mean? You walk such a fine line between that, but that really wasn't what happened. It wasn't by accident.
and the insurance companies were sending you out because they wanted to make sure that whatever policy underlying
Mhm.
was, valid and payable.
Correct.
Or who had the liability.
Yes.
And that's so. And were you doing that type of work, investigating it all the way up until?
I did that type of work, and then we were having a lot of office changes and stuff in Cigna. I mean, I actually had the whole West Coast, so I would go all the way up to Washington and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to go over and work for the client. So I became an HR person for a big retail company that was headquartered there at the time. And I did HR for them because they figured that I knew so much about insurance and stuff. And then I moved over to the brokerage because my broker is like, you really need to come work for me. And
Okay.
so that's kind of what I did. That's what I did until I moved here.
And then, now, eventually, you stopped working.
Yes.
And I know we want to be, there's, we can't mince our words too much, but can you give us a little bit of insight as to what happened?
Yeah.
Tell your story.
My day started like anybody else's day. I had an appointment and I needed to go out of the office. And after the appointment, it was around lunchtime, and I decided I would stop and run in somewhere and then grab some lunch and head back up north to the office. And I had gone into a retail place, and as I was leaving, there were some metal chairs, and I don't remember the whole thing how it
Sure.
happened because it was so shocking. They fell on my head. And so I went by ambulance to the hospital and stuff like that. And that was the last day I worked, was that morning.
And ultimately, I mean, and what I say I love, but what's so fascinating to me about this whole picture is you have this background where you're working for these insurance companies and you're investigating claims, and you had some private insurance policies, right?
I did through my work. I actually purchased one.
Yeah. Was there one that was given to you?
Yes.
And
So
then
there's
there
a
was one that was
company. Yes.
purchased.
So the company had one, and then when there was an opportunity based on my background, I went ahead and paid for
Right.
the other policy.
Right. And one of those policies they just paid out, and you were receiving a monthly benefit
Yes,
right away.
that
no
wasn't a problem.
questions.
No questions. Everything was documented. It was valid. It was fine.
And then the other policy, however, what happened?
They said that I was not disabled.
Okay.
And, I mean, I don't know what their rationale was. Again, having been hit in the head that hard, it was, I didn't really even understand like how bad I felt. I couldn't think, process, talk, a lot of those things. So I just didn't know why they didn't, but it made me very angry. It made me very scared because I support myself and I was not intending to stop working. And, there's all these panic thoughts that go into your mind, and you're thinking, why wouldn't you pay that policy?
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of describing these just like general rejected feelings. Like,
Absolutely.
you're experiencing these symptoms.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit how you were feeling in that period of time. You talked a little bit about it, but was it more your mind or was it your body?
It was definitely more my mind. I, at the time, was extremely frightened because my grandmother had died from Alzheimer's. And I was like, oh my gosh, did something happen in my brain? Physically, I did not realize at the time. I couldn't tolerate lights at all, couldn't tolerate sound, um, couldn't remember one thing to the next. Um, my brother would send me a text and I'd answer him and he'd be like, "What? I didn't even ask you that question." Or he'd tell me something I didn't remember. And so it was a lot of fear about how do I exist. I wouldn't be able to work somewhere else. And I knew I couldn't go back to my job because I had too many issues being able to. My job previously was a lot of negotiation and stuff, and I couldn't do the simplest thing.
Yeah. And, um, you know, I imagine that period of time you're going to the doctor and you're trying to get better, right?
I'm going to lots of doctors, yes.
What's that like? I mean, you going to several appointments a week, or?
Well, it was probably a couple appointments a week. I'd even gone to someone through the hospital system that their specialty was concussions.
Yeah.
And he validated the whole thing, and the other insurance company said that I was still not disabled, even though he put all that in there. So it was trying to find someone to take me because I could not drive somewhere that I didn't know where I was going because I would have massive anxiety attacks because I would feel like I was lost.
And eventually, and it sounds like it was with help. So you got involved with our office to help fight that
First one
policy that said no. I'm just curious. Tell me why that was surprising to you. Does it be just because of what's going on in your body, what's going on in your mind?
I think the hardest thing to accept after you've had an injury is people thinking you're faking it and you're not telling them the truth.
Yeah.
And that they're trying to find any inroad to say, well, you should be fine. So you're trying to communicate. The person that listened to me the most was my primary care doctor, who I've had for over 20 years, and she's younger than I am. And she's like, you are not yourself. I can see that you're not yourself. So I knew that, but I didn't like that feeling of feeling like people didn't believe me. I had every bit of confidence in your office because when they had all the information, they were saying, we think you have a really, a good claim for being disabled.
So Social Security tells you that you're not disabled, just like the insurance company had told you that before. When that happens, is your focus on I want to prove these people wrong, or is it more of like a defeating thing where did you ever think about saying, all right, I must not be, or I'm just going to give up?
Absolutely not. That's just not my personality.
Yeah.
I knew how I felt, and I knew that these are benefits that I've paid into as long as I've been working. So I just needed for someone to be able to point out all the right things because I don't know what anyone's looking for. I didn't really know what that insurance company was looking for, but I knew through your website and everything that this is what you guys do all day, and that's who I needed to handle everything.
Did you ever needed to hire an attorney for anything else before?
I have when my husband died.
Okay. And what was? I guess what I'm interested in is like, so you you've worked with an attorney's office before. I don't know if it was positive or negative.
It was positive.
Okay. What, like, what are the things that matter most to you as a client when you're trying to find somebody to help you?
I think for me, the most important thing was when I had my initial conversation with Andrew in November. I felt through our conversation that I trusted him and that it really has to come down to someone's not making you promises all the time. And having lived in a family that my father did sales my whole life, I know when people are trying to con me, and I don't feel comfortable with that. And I felt very comfortable with Andrew, who said, "You can, make sure you have me on emails, and I'll respond back." And he always did.
It's funny because when I'm speaking to clients a lot, especially new clients, a line that I use a lot is you're hiring a lawyer, not a liar. And I you're not hiring me to necessarily hear what you want to hear. You're hiring me to tell you what you need to hear. And as much as I can, I try and make those two things line up.
Right.
But there's only kind of so much that's within our control.
Absolutely.
When we're dealing with Social Security or an insurance company, whoever it is that we're helping a client with, there are rules that the game has to be played by, and we've got to stay within those rules. There's a time frame for everything. There's very little that we can do to influence how long things take, as so much is out of our control. But it's great to hear that what matters most is really, it all comes down to way that we make people feel.
I'm going to say 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that other people that I have never ever had a bad experience with an attorney. So apparently my method has worked for me, whereas I know other people that, I'm thinking, why did you do that? So it really does come down to relationship.
I think that at the end of the day, and relationship is huge, but and it's the same thing as where I'm going with this, but people don't know the difference in results. It's not like when you go to an attorney's office or you have a consultation, you're going to hire two people to do something and go with whoever gets you the better result. You pick someone and you kind of ride it out.
Yes.
Right? So you don't necessarily know what the different outcome might have been had the other attorney been the one that you hired, but you know how the person made you feel, how responsive they were to you, how quickly they returned a phone call, how they made sure that you had thorough explanations for things.
Always.
Engaged with the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always. And even the staff within the office would, be able to follow up with me because of how I felt. I couldn't even fill out the application.
Yeah.
So I had to have your office help with that. I knew that when I tried to do the other one, I would have friends fill forms out for me because I just couldn't do that. And they would ask me the question and I would give them the answer and they would fill it out.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody who was going through any of the disability processes? They've been turned down by an insurance company, or they've been turned down by Social Security. Having gone through that yourself, what are the things that you would tell them that they, to try and give them an expectation of what to expect?
Well, I would say you have to definitely be partnered with someone who knows what the Social Security process is, okay? Because I don't know what the disability process is, but if I had been working with it for a very long time, I probably would have a little bit of an idea of what's being looked at. For myself, I could only know that I was disabled. I don't know what they're looking at. So I think that's important. I think also you need someone to listen to you. So as I was going through when I got my denial, I was having other health issues and had to have some surgery and stuff. And I just said to Andrew and the team, I cannot even deal with this appeal, and everything was handled for me.
You mentioned to me that at first when you were, and this was before we started recording, but you mentioned that you had called several attorneys' offices.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of them you actually ended up speaking with, but was even just going through those consultations helpful for you or enlightening for you in any way?
When you don't know what you're doing and what you're looking for at first, and I did a search on the internet and, tried to understand why these people out of state would be interested in handling, and you'll find everybody will tell you they're going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to do it. I had 6 names down. I had either called or sent emails to all the attorneys. With Andrew, I called, and I think it was on a Saturday, and I got a call back on Saturday, and we actually had a phone call because it was during COVID. So right at the beginning, right when nobody was doing anything, you couldn't go anywhere, everything was shut down. And once we talked, and I felt really comfortable with him, when the other people finally got back to me, which might have been a week later, it was not anything fast. I already knew that I was done at that point.
One of my, and it's funny because this turned into what still to this day is like the largest LTD settlement that we've ever had for a client, where it was a similar story. Andrew and I both used to get an email anytime one of our online forms was filled out. And it was a Saturday afternoon. It was, somebody in Cleveland. The spouse was an attorney, and, the husband was out of work. He was no longer able to work because of some health issues that he had. And I didn't know that Andrew had responded to the form being filled out on our website. He didn't know that I had responded to it. About a month after we started working with the client, Andrew happened to ask the person, because he runs our LTD practice. Andrew said, why did you end up retaining us? Because we'd found out that they had spoken to several other law firms over time. They said, because nobody else even called us back within a week, and both of you responded to us on a Saturday within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of goes back to that communication piece. You don't really realize, I don't realize how poor the communication for most other law firms
Right.
really is. I hear about it, I read about it, but I guess I don't get to experience it because we just prioritize it so heavily with what we're doing. And it's not perfect, we can't. I wish that there was a way that we could make sure that we had a staff person not on the phone and waiting to answer every call that comes in. The best that we can do is tell people we'll give you a call back as soon as we quickly can, but we try and be consistent.
But even in that process, what I found was, if I did once I retained you guys, if I had a question and sent an email, I always got the answer back that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's nothing worse than you're already lost in the process. You're already afraid of, income and things like that, and somebody doesn't get back to you. And you know what? I don't want to hear that you were in court that day. That's not my problem.
Right. So you eventually get some good news from both of these cases, right? So the Social Security disability benefits are awarded. The one of the LTD policy that had said no at first, that eventually got taken care of. What does that feel like?
Well, it took a lot of stress off of me, I would say that.
Yeah.
Because when you already are injured and then you add all those levels of anxiety, I have a house payment. I have to feed my dogs. I have to do this. Now I have to buy insurance, X, Y, and Z. It just gave me the ability to start relaxing and taking all the weight off my shoulders.
I love the way that you said that because, and unfortunately, the real weight doesn't come off of people's shoulders until, after their case is resolved successfully. Yeah. But what I tell our clients in terms of the division of responsibility, what our work is versus what we need from you is, for me to be successful with any type of disability case, I need you to be treating and focused on that. But the problem is you can't do that while you're unsure where your how your bills are going to be
Correct.
paid, which is really why we have, I don't know if you ever use Jordan in our office, but our client concierge, whose job it is just to, she doesn't help with their people with their disability cases. Her job is to help people find food if they're having issues with that, or housing, and anything else that's going
Thankfully,
on.
I did not have
Yeah.
to, but that is a wonderful thing.
What I tell people is, our job is to, worry about the case and making sure that everything's moving forward so that you can focus on your health and taking care of yourself. So the way that you said that back to me so similarly is just so interesting, because I don't really necessarily, I know what we focus on and what I think people want to hear, but I don't spend enough time asking clients that question: what's valuable to you? What made a difference to you? So it's good to hear that it's hitting. But so you finally have that weight taken off your shoulders.
Yes.
Tell us what you do for enjoyment or excitement now.
Um, believe it or not, because of another surgery, my physical therapy has been really huge for me, because with everything going on with the injuries and the accident and stuff like that, I hadn't been able to do certain physical things. And thank goodness I have had the most amazing support system from family, friends, neighbors. I mean, everybody taking care of me. But it feels good that I'm now at a point where I'm starting to be able to do some things for myself.
Yeah.
You know, it you don't realize until you cannot be independent anymore, and that's what it felt like. And to have friends say to me, "You just don't seem like yourself. You've never been indecisive. You've never been this, that, whatever." So I feel like I had lunch with a friend a week or so ago, and she goes, "Oh my God, I feel like you're back. Okay, don't have anything else happen." And
If you can control that.
well, I actually, believe it or not, during all this and in between, I think the filing and appealing, I did fall again, and I hit my head and had a concussion and was back at the hospital. So it was all of those things, and now I feel like, okay, I'm not going to be an invalid, because who doesn't think about that? Who doesn't think that you're not going to have anyone to take care of you, and you're not going to be able to do something, and you're going to be like other people that have really bad things happen and they can't get themselves out of it.
So, do you have any specific feelings towards these systems now that are kind of set up to make people fail? That they deny you, not because you're not disabled, not because you're not deserving and haven't paid in, but just because they want you to give up. Do you think about that anymore, or is it just kind of out of sight, out of mind?
I think I definitely thought about it at the time. I had never heard of anyone being approved for Social Security disability from the onset, and I had a cousin who was juvenile diabetic and organ replacement and all that stuff, and he had to keep appealing, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Okay, so you already knew that was difficult. I would say from even the insurance company side of it, it's very disheartening that really is what their goal is. They try, and because they know that if you appeal to X level, then this happens, and then you got to spend money in this. And with the disability, I knew that I would get retro benefits, so that's the other thing that made me happy, was that at least we finally got the claim in. And so I knew I would get that, and I was really hoping for the retro benefits. And so once that happened, I really feel like in the past month that I've been able to kind of take a breath.
And your journey with Social Security just ended at, was it the spring or the beginning of the summer? It was like May?
Beginning, I think it was maybe June 1st or something. Yeah, it's very new.
And this is all over a period of years.
Yes, a couple years. Yep.
I don't think we said, but your accident was 2020.
Right.
So it took, not that it took 3 years for them to grant the application, but kind of finally feels like you're getting back to being whole again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I am so grateful that you took time out of your day to come and share your story with me, but now we're going to share something else. ourselves.
Okay.
Because we have a hand pie here, and this is we're not doing a donut today. We're going to get a little bit fancy.
Okay.
We're doing a peach cobbler hand pie. We're here at Six Shooter Coffee on Pearl Road in Cleveland, right down the street from our office. This is the closest we've ever shot one. I'm excited to share this with you. You going to have a taste with me?
I'm absolutely.
We've got a fork, but this just doesn't look like a fork.
It doesn't.
Food.
Well, it says hand pie, doesn't it?
It's a hand pie. I don't know why we have forks, but this looks good.
It looks very good.
What do you think?
It's very good. It's my first taste of any peach this year, any pie or anything. Very good.
I think they put some kind of sweet cheese in it too. I'm actually going to go. Most of the time we do this, I don't think people know. I don't usually get to the end of whatever we're eating. This, I think I'm going to find the bottom of. Very delicious. Well, Gloria, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure. It's great for us as a law firm just to be able to see somebody through their journey. And I know that at the end of the day, what you wish for more than anything else is your health.
Absolutely.
But at least to be able to kind of help you know that you have peace of mind to provide for yourself.
Yes.
That's really a reward in and of itself for us. And thank you for sharing your story with everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thanks for listening to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse. Rate, subscribe, and tune in next week for more discourse and donuts.